true, to be 100% honest, I feel like everything's just worked out the way that it's supposed to. I feel like I'm so much more prepared right now, and maybe off the Contender Series, this wouldn't have been the same outcome. And I'm just such a different fighter now, and taking the losses I took and all that really truly forged my fighter mentality and things. And I learned a lot about myself from all that. And yeah, it really, all this was the right timing. And maybe the UFC's decision was right, and I wasn't ready at that moment. And I could have went out and lost my first two fights in the UFC and been done from there. And who knows, especially, I was telling Paige, like, after making that first walk in the UFC, for me, it's so hard to fathom making a walk for any other organization and doing that. And we've talked about it so much with her career and stuff. It's like, dude, you make that walk and it's just different, man. The lights, the crowd, the production, and it really is what fighting's all about, man. It's the pinnacle, and it's so much fun.
Coming off his finally UFC debut win, huge win on like 4 days' notice. I can't wait to hear this story. It is always my pleasure to speak to Austin Vanderford. Austin, welcome back. Congratulations on the win. How is everything?
Oh man, it was just I don't even really know yet. Everything was just so crazy, and yeah, man, it's been, the craziness has been drawn out for still not quite a week yet, but yeah, it's been wild.
Okay, so we talked after your last fight. I'd heard rumors that like there's a good chance Austin's going to end up in the UFC. So I was like, it's just more of a matter of when, not if. When did you get the official call for this fight? Like, because this is so crazy late notice.
Yeah, I got the whole story last Saturday. We had trained hard early in the morning, and actually I did a little bit more on a Saturday than I usually do for whatever reason. And we had got home. I was kind of tired, took a little nap, and woke up right before the fights were about to happen. That fight card, and I heard my phone start buzzing, and I saw it was Sean Shelby, and I was like, "Damn, I better answer this call." And so I answered it, and yeah, basically Sean was like, "Hey, I know it's really late notice. We're like 5 days out from, or 6 days out from weigh-ins, but if you can make 170 for the UFC Seattle card, I've got a spot for you." And immediately I was like, "Yes, please." I didn't know who the opponent was, didn't know anything about it. And she's like, "All right, you're fighting Billy Goff then next Saturday. We'll see you out there in Seattle." So, I mean, right then I just, everything was like, holy shit, I just got the call. Like, we're going out to Seattle, babe. Book us a ticket. Like, let's do this. And so the rest of the night goes, Sunday comes and goes. And then I start thinking it's kind of weird that by Sunday night we hadn't gotten a contract or anything. And I hadn't really told a whole lot of people yet. Just because I didn't want to, I didn't know exactly. So we get to Monday morning and I still don't have a contract. And I'm like, damn, maybe this isn't happening. I mean, weigh-ins are on Friday. It's Monday. We have no contract. We're supposed to fly out Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. So I go about my normal Monday, go to training. Kind of in the mindset that, I'm should be fighting this Saturday. So we get done with training by about 4 p.m. on Monday. I get a call and am told that Billy Goff was out of the fight for whatever reason. So, kind of my biggest fears were coming to fruition. By like 4:30, they had found a replacement, Nikolay, and I agreed to that. And then by 9 p.m. on Monday, I was told Nikolay wasn't going to be able to make 170, and that he was out of the fight too. So now we're looking Monday night, and I'm sitting in the sauna still. I've got my nutrition plan, my cut plan going. But I went to bed Monday night thinking that I probably wasn't going to be on the card anymore. Tuesday morning rolls around. We actually canceled that flight at 7 a.m. and rebooked one for later on in the evening, Saturday or Tuesday, just in case. And thankfully, I got another call at like 11 on Tuesday morning that Nikolay would accept the fight, but it had to be at 175. And at that point, I was like, fucking A, man, let's go. And then I got the contract immediately after that. So yeah, Tuesday at like 11 a.m. Eastern time, everything was signed, sealed, and I had to flip that switch and then get into fight mode.
That's what talk about a wave of emotions, man. To get the call and then then you don't hear anything, and then you say the opponent's out because these things. I mean, this is just how it happens sometimes. I can only imagine like the wave of emotion had to be crazy in those 3 or 4 days.
Oh man, I was so many ups and downs just in that situation alone. But man, I just kept a strong mind and that's what I believe, being a fighter is all about is anytime, any place, anywhere. And especially when you get this opportunity to go fight in the UFC and the privilege to be able to go do that, Sean could have waited until 48 hours and I would have said yes. And we would have got the job done too.
I remember talking to you when we talked a few months ago after your win, when you left PFL and coming out of that, your decision, you were going back to welterweight, you were going to stay at welterweight. You felt that was going to be your weight class. But I remember when you went to middleweight the first time, it was because it is a tough weight cut. It is a tough weight cut. But so like, where was your body at? Because I know you said it post fight, like you were ready to make 170. Now that's not easy to do on 5 days notice because you're not a small welterweight. So like, how tough was that? Obviously, you got the 175, so you didn't have to go quite as hard. But obviously, you were ready to go to 170.
Yeah. I've got my nutritionist is amazing. If he can get Kayla Harrison down to 135, getting me to 170 isn't a problem. So. Just stuck to the plan. My coach Bahumpa told me from Saturday, he said, hey, no matter what goes on until Friday morning, keep the mentality we're fighting on Saturday and stick to the plan. And it was admittedly Monday night was hard, water loading and being on a really strict diet because it was so close. And it's like, damn, dude, I just want to stop drinking water and eat some good food and stuff. But kept the mentality and
I love it. So listen, we all know, and I know, like when I put the tweet out that you were coming, you were signed to UFC and it was happening on Saturday. A lot of times, like when you're a prelim fighter, like that, kind of comes and goes, right? But man, the reaction was insane. I don't know if you saw it or felt it, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, but like generally speaking, you don't kind of see that kind of reaction. But man, there was so many people retweeting and quoting and like, he's finally getting his chance. He's finally like, did you feel that at all? Because typically speaking, a lot of first time UFC fighters don't get that kind of attention. You did. Like there was a real buzz about you signing with the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, from day one, I feel like I've been built for that, being married to Paige and, of course, my career and everything, but inevitably she's going to be thrown in and her name's going to be out there, whether it's positive or negative, I'm just getting in because of Paige or whatever the case is. So, I'm used to all of that. And more than anything, it was just cool to see, fun to see, again, positive or negative. Just getting your name talked about, man, in this sport is cool for me.
Absolutely. So you go out there, and I'll be honest, like I'm obviously very familiar with your career. I was not super familiar with Nikolay, to be honest with you. I looked him up after I heard about the fight, and man, like you could. Again, I know fighters are always their own worst critics, but for me, on 4 days' notice to go out and do what you did, take him down, just absolutely batter him the way you did. I thought it was a very, very strong performance. But you tell me, like now that you're out of it, and you obviously had a couple days to reflect. How do you feel you did? Because again, I don't care if you won a 30-27 decision. It was the most boring fight in the universe. 4 days notice, it doesn't matter. You got to win the UFC. But you went out and actually dominated and finished the guy.
Yeah, yeah. I of course with the time frame didn't have a ton of opportunity to study and do the proper homework and game plan or do anything really. But from the film I got to watch to him, he's really good at what he does. He's a really good striker, has amazing teeps, front kicks, a really good check left hook. But I was just a lot better at what I do. And I had went back, watched his fight with Michael Morales on the Contender Series, and he had a strong performance in that. I saw some holes and some things I thought I could capitalize on. And for me going into it, I thought the most important thing was be patient. Even though it was such short notice, man, from the moment I walked off out of the cage at LFA October 18th, knowing that this was possibly an opportunity sometime in the near future, my mindset was okay, we stay grinding until I get that call and I'll be ready. And thank God I was preparing the right way. And at American Top Team we got all the Dagestani guys, and I've got amazing teammates there. One of my main training partners, Azamat, he had just made his short notice. I think against Zach Reese at 185, and I saw what he went out and did, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go do the exact same thing he did, and really it was pretty close to the same thing.
Yeah, can I ask like how you felt about the stoppage? Because like you were hitting him. I mean, he couldn't move. You were just hammering away. I actually thought they could have probably stopped it a few seconds earlier because he was
Yeah.
just he wasn't moving. He wasn't rolling. He was just basically putting up his hand and just like almost. I know it sounds terrible. It's almost like just waiting for the end of the round. Like he was just
Yeah.
hoping he could survive. How did you feel about it? Because your ground and pound was nasty. You were hammering away at him pretty hard. Like I thought you could have possibly stopped a few seconds earlier. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I had the handcuff on that behind his back. My right arm had that hand chopped to his. I can feel when a guy like maybe has an opportunity to wiggle out, but he was making no effort to get out of. He was never going to get out of that unless the time ran out. I knew I still when they stopped it. I think I saw it 45 seconds left, and we prepare for that. I could have sat there for 10 minutes and kept doing the exact same thing. And my output, my cardio was still at that point. And yeah, I mean, I really at that point, when they stopped it, I was kind of starting to get my second wind, and I felt like I was going to be able to push it even more. And like you said, it really hurt him even more. So, he kind of argued the stoppage, but he was never getting out of that. And unless the clock ran out, and I was ready to land probably 50 more shots before, in those 45 seconds. So
Yeah. Now, I would love to ask you about like the emotion of finally getting your UFC debut and finally getting that win and considering everything you had to go through to get here. But you barely got a chance to put your arms up and celebrate. And he comes rushing across the cage and shoves you. And I was just like, whoa, like this is so weird. Like, and I know you addressed this after the fight, but it was such a weird circumstance, like for him to get mad at you. Like if he wants to get mad at the referee for stopping the fight, I guess I maybe understand that. But again, when you rewatch the fight, like it was clearly over. He was clearly not getting out of there. He was just eating punches, and you can't just sit there eat punches and hope that you get to make to the end of the round. Were you like, because you didn't get a chance to really celebrate? Like you go to your corner yourself, and boom, he's right in your face.
yeah, you know what? And reflecting back on all of that, like I understand. I get it, man. And to me, it wasn't as big a deal as maybe like some of the media put it out and stuff. It's like, dude, we're out there trying to fucking kill each other. And I get it, man. Emotions run high. And, he pushed me. It's like, now maybe the most aggressive he was the whole fight was right there, but which, is always kind of silly. But I get it, man. Like, this is our dream. And we're trying to go out there and you know, kill another man. And when, stuff like that happens, emotions run high and I don't fault him and it wasn't really that big of a deal. It really thinking back, it made it a little more cool and got the crowd involved a little bit more and stuff. So I thought it went perfect and yeah, but from my end, no hard feelings. It, is what it is.
Did you run into him or his team after the fight at all? Because I know again, emotions run high. We've seen stuff like that before. A guy gets upset about the decision or whatever. Did you run into any of them backstage or anything after the fight?
Ran into his team and they were apologetic and didn't really understand. But they did a pretty good job from that point moving forward to keep us separated because I think after like in the medical checks, he was still pretty fired up. So, but I never saw him again after that. But at the same time, I told my team, like, what's he gonna do? He just got his ass beat for 10 minutes. If he wants another one with no gloves on, I'll be happy to do the same thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, at that point, you finally get the chance to let it all soak in. You get your post-fight interview, which was cool. And my immediate thought, and I know I said this to people, privately and publicly, a lot of people said you should have been signed off the Contender Series a couple of years ago. It didn't happen. Now, again, you went on to have a great career in Bellator, did big things over there. But did you even have that moment, like a full circle moment coming back to that? Because again, I think you should have been signed off the Contender Series. It is what it is, but like to go out there and get that kind of win, do you allow yourself the emotion like, wow, it finally happened?
Yes and no. I mean, man, I just true to be 100% honest. I feel like everything's just worked out the way that it's supposed to. I feel like I'm so much more prepared right now, and maybe off the Contender Series, this wouldn't have been the same outcome. And I'm just such a different fighter now, and taking the losses I took and all that really truly forged my fighter mentality and things. And I learned a lot about myself from all that. And it really, all this was the right timing and maybe the UFC's decision was right and I wasn't ready at that moment. And I could have went out and lost my first two fights in the UFC and been done from there. And who knows, especially I was telling Paige, like after making that first walk in the UFC, for me, it's so hard to fathom making a walk for any other organization and doing that. And we've talked about it so much with her career and stuff. It's like, dude, you make that walk and it's just different, man. The lights, the crowd, the production, and it really is what fighting's all about, man. It's the pinnacle and it's so much fun. And yeah.
It's funny because I remember talking to you when I talked to you and Paige after she did bare knuckle, and then after the power slap thing, we were kind of joking. I was like, "Hey, you ever going to do bare knuckle? You got to put the bare knuckle and power slap aside, man. You're in the UFC now, so you can't do any of that now."
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, this is it, man. I'm making this run in the UFC, and God willing, a strong 5 years, and I feel so good physically and mentally, and haven't really taken like crazy damage, especially to my head or anything. So, I feel ready. I feel the strongest, the best that I've ever been. And I'm ready to really make a hard push.
Now I know that like this was again not ideal circumstances to go out there and fight on 4 days notice, but obviously you stayed ready. The UFC loves that, and you went out there and you were ready to make 170. It was Nikolay who couldn't make 170. You went out there, you put on a dominant performance, you put him away. Can I ask, like, are you keeping that same like stay ready mentality? Because that's how this sport works. Like they may call you again and say, hey, we got a guy dropped out in Montreal, or we got a guy who needs you away. Like, is the mentality going to stay the same in terms of like staying ready so you don't have to get ready?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like I was thinking about on the plane ride home. Was like, man, I don't even really like. I don't really care to celebrate. I don't really. Of course, it's fun. I'm soaking it all in, but I'm excited to just be back in the gym and when you take a loss, it's almost like fuck. The last thing I want to do is go back into the gym. The hardest thing is getting back in and like, okay, we gotta suck this up, go back, have everyone tell you, hey, tough luck last fight. Let's get back after it. Coming off a win is easy. It's like, man, I just want to be back in the gym training and improving and reflecting back on the fight and things I felt like I could do better. And yeah, I'm gonna stay ready and I want to be active and of course Father Time is undefeated and I'm not getting younger every day, and so I just want to capitalize and keep it rolling.
I'm not going to ask you this question specifically trying to get you to take a shot at them, but I remember we talked after you left the PFL, after you decided like you were going to cut ties and move on from there. I'm sure because you got teammates, like you've seen what's been going on over there right now. I know obviously Johnny Evelyn's a great example of that. He's been pretty angry about his inactivity and what's going on. Obviously, listen, hindsight's 2020. You can't live in the past, but like knowing how this worked out, that you got in the UFC, you got this moment, really cool moment. You got out there. Are you very happy with the decisions you've made? Because I think there's some guys in the PFL right now who are pretty angry with the way things are going over there. And you're like, man, like, are you like, wow, I really did make the right call here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I spoke about it in my post fight. Part of the blessings of taking the losses that I took, like, I would have went out and won the world title, beat Gegard, and who knows from there. I could be very well could be sucking the same thing. And in my heart of hearts, this is exactly where I've always wanted to be. I wanted to fight in the UFC. So again, yeah. I mean, a guy like Johnny Evelyn, Johnny could go in and compete in the middleweight world title for the UFC. He's so good, so talented, such a hard worker, and so yeah, I feel for those guys, and it's tough, and I don't agree with how everything was handled and all that, but hopefully we see more of the guys who are deserving to move on, get out of that situation, and they can go on, and we're here to make a living fighting, and it's unfair to get held up like that and shit. It's kind of bullshit in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. With that being said, obviously when you were in Bellator, you did some great things at middleweight, huge wins. You got a title fight, all those kind of things. But I remember talking to you when we spoke several months ago about going back to welterweight and seeing what you did on Saturday night. Do you feel like you're ready to make some? Now you're not just in the UFC because, yeah, again, I could say congratulations, awesome that you got signed, huge first win. But it feels like you're a kind of guy who can make waves in this division. Not to say you didn't do well at middleweight, but it feels like welterweight's where you're going to do the most damage. Do you feel like this really is like you got a chance now to really kind of show who you are? Because again, I know it's not the easiest weight cut, but obviously it seems like you are built to make to do a lot of damage at welterweight.
Yeah, 100%. And that was going into my decision too. I wanted to make sure that I went in with everything in my back pocket to help me succeed, and being that 170 is without a question the weight class for me, and yeah, I mean middleweight, those guys are big, and I was a small middleweight. I feel like I'm on the bigger side of welterweight, and I can make weight easy now. We've got things dialed in, and I'm actually looking to maybe add a little bit more size even, and because just the way we have things all good with my nutrition and stuff. Yeah. I mean, like I said, the timing's all right, and yeah, I'm ready to make a splash, man.
Now you've always embraced like the adversity you've had to face. Like again, when you were at 185, you were the smaller guy at 185, and pretty much every fight you had at 185.
Yeah.
And obviously, listen, you have a very high profile wife. There's no doubt about that. You've always embraced that. You jokingly said, hey, call me Mr. VanZant. I don't care,
Yeah.
whatever. But listen, you're not coming into UFC as a typical 1-0 fighter because you had so much experience in Bellator, because you had so many big fights over there. And because, again, let's be honest, you do have a very high profile lifestyle with your wife and the life you guys lead. Are you accepting and embracing that? Like, you know that there's going to be guys calling you out because you're Austin Vanderford. There's guys who you're not coming in the typical 1-0 UFC fighter with like, you got time to grow and, you're going to be like, working your way from the prelims main card. Like, I don't think it would be a shock for your next fight to be a main card on a big card because you just have a bigger profile than the average 1-0 fighter in the UFC. But you've always kind of embraced that, right? Like you've never shied away from that.
Yeah, yeah. And again, going back to the experience that I got in Bellator at middleweight and the fights and stuff, win or lose, forged me into this. And now I'm ready if they called me up, I don't really anticipate this happening, but if they're like, hey, co-main event or, main card next fight, I'm ready for it. And I'm excited. And whoever they decide they think is the right trajectory, the right matchup, I'm ready for anything.
I was thinking I don't want to put any bad juju in the world, but I was like, Paige has her power slap match the weekend of UFC 313. I'm just saying, hey, maybe there's a welterweight fight on there. I mean, you never know. Call may come in.
Dude, I like we said, staying ready, man, and yeah, ready for anything, and yeah, I want to be the company man and the company guy, and step in when they need it.
Listen, you still got a lot of time ahead of you. I don't want to put this in a bad way. I'm saying this in a very good way, but now that you've kind of like realized, I want to say maybe it is a lifelong dream. Like, because again, we've talked about the UFC many, many times. You're like, now that you're here, like, this is where you're going to spend the rest of your career. Like, you're going to spend the rest of your career in the UFC.
100%. Yeah. When I'm done the UFC, that'll be it for me. I don't have the aspirations, and thankfully too, we're financially in a position where, when I'm done here, maybe I test bare knuckle or anything. I'm not really interested in that. Whatever, I'm 1-0 in the UFC, but I want to be the UFC welterweight champion. And that's where I want to work my way up to. And yeah, we're just going to go at it fight by fight. And yeah, that's the goal and the aspiration.
I know that this was not ideal, of course, getting a fight on 4 days notice and flying out and doing all that. But can I ask, like, how busy ideally you would like to be this year? Because you did have to deal with a lot of inactivity after the whole PFL Bellator mess, and then getting the fight in LFA and then coming out of that. I mean, I'm curious, like, this fight was in February. How busy ideally, like, again, you can't map things out because the UFC could call you tomorrow, like I said, jokingly, and say, hey, we got a spot at 313. Paige is doing power slap on Friday. Do you want to fight on Saturday? But ideally, like, how busy would you like to be this year?
Busy, man. I hope to fight again, before the summer, at the end of the summer, going into November, December, like that. Man, if I could get 3 more fights in before the year's over, it would be awesome.
Yeah, well, man, it was so cool to see you have that moment. Like I said, there's a lot of people, myself included, who felt like, you probably should have been in the UFC before. Again, you can't live with that regret. You can't live with the moment. But I was like, I'm just happy that you finally got your opportunity. And listen, you got to go out and make the most of it. And boy, did you make the most out of it. You went out there. Not only did you get a win, you got a stoppage win. You even had, like I said, maybe not the best circumstance, but you kind of even had a viral post-fight moment. So, I mean, listen, it all kind of works out, right?
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I wouldn't have changed any of it. I think I would have taken everything that happened this last weekend over, going and getting a walk-off knockout in the first round. I think just everything that went into all this and getting to hear the crowd chant USA and go on, it was just such a special moment and so cool. And I definitely would not have changed anything.
Now, you say, like, you're not even like in a celebration mode necessarily. I know you worked out at ATT. Are you going to allow yourself a few days just to rest and relax again? I know Paige has her power slide match in a couple weeks. So are you just going to get right back in the gym and just stay ready? Or are you going to at least take a couple days to like just enjoy and like eat some food? You just had to cut weight down to 175 on short notice. Like, do you allow yourself a few days of that? Or are you already kind of keeping that mentality like, hey, I'm staying ready because you never know?
Yeah. The only thing I burst the bursa sac in my elbow, so my elbow is a little inflamed right now. But As soon as I feel good, I'm going to get back in, start off with some strength and conditioning for the week. And of course, we've got power slot for Paige next week. So we'll be back on the road and be at the card in Las Vegas and all that. But yeah, I mean, right now I plan on going back to the gym tomorrow and at least getting some strength and conditioning in and yeah, just get right back after it.
Man, well, it's just so cool to see you finally have this moment. Like I said, I certainly don't want to discount all the great things you did in Bellator, but I know it's been a lifelong dream to get here. And after you left PFL, Bellator, whatever it was called at the time, I know
Yeah.
the goal was to get to the UFC. It didn't happen in maybe the perfect set of circumstances, but it worked out pretty damn well. You got to
Yep.
get that big win, man. So congrats on the win. Obviously, best of luck to Paige in her power slap match. I know the nerves are always more when it's your other person out there. I'm sure she was nervous for you, but obviously, man. So obviously, have fun out in Vegas for that, man. But congratulations, seriously, man. It's been a long time coming. I think a lot of people, myself included, felt like you should have been in the UFC years ago. So I'm glad it finally happened. I'm glad you went out there and got that big win. I know you're not ready to enjoy it, but enjoy it, man. You earned this.
No, and don't get me wrong, man. I 100% and I'm enjoying it and you know, and I am going to enjoy it and all that. But for me, enjoying it is, you know, looking back, reflecting on it all, being proud and happy of what I was able to go do and look to see where I could be better and just go from there. So I'm definitely enjoying it to the fullest for how I like to do it.